Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Listen, CNN.
Listen, okay?
I'm already all in on Donald Trump. He's been my guy since 2016. It ain't changing anytime soon. I mean, something big would have to change for me to change my perspective and all of a sudden start supporting neocons and the establishment status quo. I've already made up my mind. I'm shilling for Trump. I don't care what anyone has to say. You know, it's basic freedom of expression and speech. That's my opinion, and I'm gonna use my platform to scream it from the mountaintops. What I'm trying to say is that I'm locked in. You don't need to work overtime to further convince me that I'm making the right choice, okay, CNN? The choice has already been made. Obviously, I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but as the leftist mainstream media panic continues, they keep trying something new. Every week is a new narrative relating to Donald Trump, and this week's has to be the most pathetic. Well, actually, it's kind of a reattempt at a previous strategy that they've tried before, and it just isn't convincing anyone. Why, you may ask? Well, because they're trying to make Donald Trump seem scary by promoting what I'd say is arguably his strongest point. Real spooky extremist stuff, folks. The newest report is that Trump is supposedly out for revenge, and I'm not exactly convinced, at least not yet, that that's a bad thing. Let me show you guys what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so this week's narrative is similar to a narrative that spawned, I think, maybe roughly 3 weeks to a month ago. Trump wants his enemies to fear for their lives, writes Eric Levitz at The Intelligencer. The Intelligencer, you say.
And there seems to be no sign of intelligent life anywhere.
Last Friday, the Republican Party's presidential frontrunner suggested that America's top generals, quote, deserve to perish. In a post on Truth Social, Donald Trump accused Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, of committing treason, an act so egregious that in times gone by, the punishment would have been death. Specifically, Trump wrote that Mark Milley had been dealing with China to give them a heads up on the thinking of the President of the United States and that this treasonous act could have triggered a war between the two countries. The ex-president was seemingly referring to a report that Milley had called the Chinese counterpart, or called his Chinese counterpart, shortly before the 2020 election and after the January 6th insurrection to assure him that the United States was stable and that Trump would not be ordering any attack against China on his way out the door. Given that this accurately conveyed the administration's posture and that the US had no interest in tricking a nuclear weapons state into believing that America was bound to attack, it's difficult to see how Milley's call would have constituted treason. Alright, so that's a very left-wing framing of the situation. The point that Trump is making is that Mark Milley, who answers directly to the president, not only on this occasion but on multiple occasions, went behind Donald Trump's back, I guess you could say subverted the direct military chain of command, and essentially did his own thing without the president's permission, and Trump is making the point that essentially the guy had gone rogue, and that could be perceived as treasonous. You know, that's a debate for another time, it's a discussion for another time, but these left-wing hacks are reframing this situation for their ridiculous little clickbait headlines, attempting to promote this bogus narrative that Donald Trump is in a way threatening Mark Milley's life. I mean, it is completely preposterous. The pearl clutchers in the media are attempting to promote this narrative.
Milley's tenure was extraordinary. He did a great job. He has served honorably, and he deserves our praise and thanks. And he does not deserve what he's receiving from President Trump right now.
You mentioned this new reporting. There is a new piece in The Atlantic, and part of that says that Milley has told friends that he expects if Trump does return to the White House, which he's obviously trying to do, that the newly elected president will come after him. And Milley has reportedly told people, quote, he'll start throwing people in jail and I'd be on the top of the list. Do you think that's a justified concern?
Look, I think it's a legitimate fear. If you recall from my memoir that you mentioned at the top, I cite a circumstance where the president, egged on by his close advisors, wanted to call back to active duty Admiral McRaven and General McChrystal to court-martial them for some things that they allegedly said in the public domain. And Milley and I had to talk the president out of doing that for any number of reasons. So is it possible that a new loyalist sitting around Trump in the Oval Office will say, let's call up Milley? Yeah, it's quite likely. Now, the good news is if there's a silver lining in all this is Trump's kind of poisoned the well. I don't know that a jury could or anybody would find that he could be given what we would call command influence, that such a thing could happen. But nonetheless, I think it's a legitimate fear. The president's also said that a second term would be about retribution, right? So I think these are all legitimate concerns.
But can we just take a moment I mean, you were his Pentagon chief. The former defense secretary is saying that it is a legitimate fear that the former commander-in-chief, who is seeking to be the commander-in-chief again, would want to seek retribution against someone like General Milley simply because he doesn't like the way that tenure is being reported in books and in articles.
Yeah, and I think simply also because the way Milley conducted himself, which was to offer candid, frank advice. If it wasn't what the president wanted to hear because of what Milley was saying, or he didn't want to hear what I was saying, look, he doesn't like that. He wants to find yes men in his office. And so, yeah, he would do that. It's hard for me to believe I'm saying that as well. I wish I didn't have to say that. But if I didn't have the experience in the Oval Office with President Trump seriously wanting to call back to active duty McChrystal and McRaven to court-martial them, I would be less certain. But unfortunately, it is what it is.
And they are presenting this narrative in totally skewed, as per usual, biased fashion to paint this picture as if Donald Trump is unhinged, seeking revenge, vindictive. Oh my God, it's ludicrous. How extreme. But anyone who's actually been paying attention over the last couple of years probably doesn't share the same level of fake moral outrage. Most people are probably thinking, yeah, good. It makes sense. I saw someone post this at some point from an account called Vote Blue. He's vindictive. I consider this one example. Washington, hours before he was scheduled to retire in 2018, Andrew G. McCabe, the then FBI's deputy director, was fired by the Justice Department, depriving him of his pension and prompting cheers from Donald J. Trump, who had been hounding him over his role in the Russia investigation. I mean, what am I supposed to feel bad for Andy McCabe? Because he got fired and lost his pension? You know, Andy McCabe, the guy who worked with the DNC to fabricate salacious, false evidence, which was then illegitimately presented to a FISA court, where they received a FISA warrant allowing them to spy on and infiltrate Donald Trump's campaign. You know, just an illegal investigation, a coup attempt led and funded by Hillary Clinton and the DNC to unseat the former president of the United States. Yeah, that guy got fired? Oh, Trump is so extreme. What a vindictive piece of you-know-what. Yeah, give me a break. The idea is that you have all of these honest, hardworking government peoples, and that evil, terrible tyrant Donald Trump wants to come in and go after them. For no reason at all. I mean, why would he want to do this? What a bogus narrative. I mean, what a ridiculous rewriting of history. As if Donald Trump doesn't have legitimate reason to be angry, to a certain extent, seek justice in these matters. Donald Trump isn't looking for revenge. He's not vindictive. Donald Trump is seeking justice. Mark Milley isn't some innocent little character. Mark Milley, on multiple occasions, violated his oath and disregarded the direct military chain of command. Mark Milley was a rogue actor working for some other group or some ulterior motive and against the President of the United States, who was his direct boss. Mark Milley also happens to be the same guy who was pushing for Donald Trump to send boots on the ground and instigate another conflict in the Middle East, which, by the way, I don't know if Mark Milley was involved, but there were then reports in the mainstream press that actually it was Donald Trump who was trying to invade another nation, and Mark Milley was the one who had to stop President Trump from sending us into another global conflict. Even though it was the exact opposite, and Donald Trump was the one who stopped us from stepping into another ridiculous, endless war. The guy's no little cupcake. He's an establishment war hawk who, look, the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, believes might have committed an act of treason. That's some pretty serious stuff. And maybe, just maybe as journalists, you guys should be looking for the truth on both sides, rather than promoting this ridiculous, one-sided narrative that Donald Trump is some extreme, crazed lunatic that cannot be trusted in a position of power. You know, we heard it in 2016 a million times that Donald Trump, he's unhinged, he's crazy, he's going to want to impose himself as a dictator and get us into World War III. Yeah, you tried the outrage porn back in 2016, and maybe it was somewhat plausible back then since Donald Trump was a political unknown, but after 4 years of seeing how the man operates as president, yeah, you're not convincing anyone. It's another last-ditch, pathetic smear campaign effort to scare us, oh, Trump's extreme, but if you really think about it, what they're essentially saying is that, oh no, don't vote for Donald Trump because there's a serious fear here, a serious concern that he might drain the swamp. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's kind of his campaign slogan, and I'm pretty sure that's one of the biggest, reasons for voting for the guy, and it's actually one of the biggest critiques of the guy, that he didn't do it enough during his first 4 years in office. So if you're telling me that, the mantra headed into 2024 is that Donald Trump is serious this time, or is less naive this time and is going in ready to clean house in Washington, if that's what you're telling me I should be scared of, well then again, right back I guess to the thesis or the topic of this video, I was already convinced, CNN. You didn't have to convince me further. The pearl clutching continues, the nonsense fake news narratives continue, and of course, liberal mainstream Democrat panic continues. In other words, like I keep saying, it feels like we're repeating 2016 all over again. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you. That's the video. Nothing too crazy. Hopefully you enjoyed spending this little time with me. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. I mean, come on, we'd love to have you here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.